sex talk with Erika Miley. Cause sexuality is tough. And okay, sex just isn't good enough. No. Sex talk with Erika Miley.
Hey folks, welcome to Sex Talk with Erika Miley. Erika Miley here. Just you and me today. I really wanted to take an opportunity to essentially revisit and this whole season and talk about where we've been through this season. And I also wanted to talk to you listeners about where we're going in the next season. I also wanted to talk about like some of the things that are coming up for me as a human. So to kick us off, I want to revisit some of the things that we have talked about over these wonderful last few weeks. I got to talk to first in the very beginning of the season to Shauna Potter from War on Women. We talked all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And what does it mean to be a performer and a woman and learn to explore yourself, hold your own boundaries with yourself and others, and be a musician. And all that being said, we're talking about this in the midst of a pandemic where Shauna wasn't even getting to perform. Still probably more than likely, as I sit here in February recording this, more than likely has not returned to performing because we're still in the middle of, bless all the people on the internet who are calling the pandemic lots of different things like the pandemonium. And I believe credit is to the wonderful Black community for giving us all of these wonderful other words. I'm as I've been thinking about recording this wrap-up episode, I've just been thinking about how the pandemic has really like informed a lot of these conversations, especially with Susan Bratton. Susan and I did the sex trends of 2021. We did the sex trends of 2020 and together, and the pandemic completely upended it all. And Susan and I talked about that. She talked a little bit about getting COVID herself and trying to deal with that. And I know so many of you have dealt with the pandemic impacting your own sexual life, your relationships, your families. I hear from my clients every single day how the pandemic is impacting them, whether overtly or covertly. I also talked with the wonderful Dr. Bianca Loreno, who we talked a lot about power and intersectionality and race, and how does not only just like the field of sexuality, sex therapy, sex educators, any person who's in academia, like how does that impacted by our identities and our various identities, and how do we communicate those things? And if those of you who are interested and who need CEUs, remember that Bianca is offering wonderful CEUs for those who are in different fields around fat sex. And what does it look like when you are embracing bodies? And what does it mean to embrace every body at every size? We also talked about anxiety this season. I feel like I talk about anxiety in almost probably every episode, maybe. But me and my wonderful mentor, Ricky Siegel, talked a lot about how the pandemic in particular has shown up for our clients, shown up for us, and how much people are trying to just have any desire at all, and how much the pandemic has increased fear in such a way that it has eliminated desire for some people. It has maybe increased masturbation at times just to try to cope with stress overall. I also later, the next interview that I'm going to talk about, it's one of the interviews I'm actually really, really proud of, because I not only did I listen to it back, but I just, from my end, and because I'm not going to speak for Joan Price, I really enjoyed and got a lot of myself out of my conversation with Joan Price. We talked about sex at any age, and how does aging and how we see aging impact our ability to see our bodies, understand our bodies are going to develop and change throughout our entire lifespan. And that often culturally we're taught that then our development stops, I think, in like our 20s. I think that that's the underground or overt message sometimes, that the 20-year-old body is what you should expect from yourself, and that sex and pleasure belongs in your 20s, and that's the only time. It's not that we're getting these messages like all the time overtly, but a lot of times the only bodies we ever see are that of the youthful appearance, right? So getting to talk to Joan about how our bodies develop and change and can experience pleasure in lots of different segments of our lives, I think was really impactful for me. And I hope it was impactful for you. And if you haven't listened yet, go listen to that. That was, that episode's probably one of my favorite, probably, I would say in the top 10, top 5, maybe even, that I've ever recorded. So go listen to that one. Joan is a kick too. So if you get to follow anyone on Twitter, Joan's great. Also, I got to talk with the amazing author, Jane Boone. We talked about her book, Edge Play, which is all about embracing a power dynamic, from the perspective of the person who is the lead character. She essentially starts to explore going from working in the financial industry to working in and becoming a dominatrix. And what does that look like? What is that like? And how does that express itself not only in her own individual intimate life, but also in the life that she shows other people. The book is a lot of fun. It's super hot. And Jane just, it was so much fun. Jane sent me that book, and it was tied up like some of the people and the characters in the book. And just again, another really, really fun, that's the selfish part of my podcast is, yes, I get to explore and give loads of free information to all of you. But the selfish part is that I get to talk to these folks. I get to talk to people and hear what they nerd out about. And that's what keeps coming back. Not only all of you, my listeners, but what keeps me coming back is getting to have these wonderful conversations. We also, I also talked to an incredible financial dominatrix, Mistress Harley. Like, just so much fun to talk to someone who has taken and made a career out of something that I think that, especially in the pandemic, many more people are starting to explore. And I hope this, I don't know that this will be the case. It's just something that I hope for. I hope the pandemic has helped some of us be able to see that sex work is a valid form of work for those who are doing it because they choose it and not because it's coercive to them. That there are many, many people who have shifted their livelihood to OnlyFans and maybe a different other kind of sex work because of the economic, the economic complete changes that have happened as a result of the pandemic. People losing their careers, losing their jobs, losing their businesses, and using sex work as a way to support themselves and their families, and or maybe an interest that they've had and never gotten to actually do. So this season was filled with really, I didn't expect that this season would have a theme, but the theme ended up being the pandemic. I don't think it could have been any other way, really. I strive to make this show about what not only just I'm interested in, but the things that are actually happening to you in the here and now. And I think that the pandemic being the theme of this season was essentially what it needed to be, because that's what we've all been facing. We've all been facing absolute and complete upheaval. Our lives have changed in innumerable ways. And this season kind of explores in different facets how and why. So I hope if you haven't heard the whole season that you go back and listen to it all. Please, 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 pretty please. But also, I hope that this season has given you opportunity to know that you are not alone in your struggle, that every single one of us, myself included, have struggled and been in a lot of pain and trying to navigate now what life looks like in the face of that pain. And what does it mean to find pleasure when you're going through deep, deep, deep amounts of pain? And I'm not going to say that the next season isn't going to have elements of the pandemic in it as well. Like, we don't know how long this is going to be. There's hope, of course, that most of us, if not all of us, will be vaccinated by the summertime and that we'll be able to return to some sort of semblance of a life by then. But we don't know. We just don't know. And I think that ambiguity is exhausting, especially for the length of time that we've all been navigating it. And I know that I've said in other episodes of this season that we're actually built fairly well to withstand like brief emergency. And by brief, I mean that time varies for every person, but like we actually can handle short bursts of emergency. Our threat system's built fairly well for that. It's this chronic emergency that has exhausted all of us physiologically, psychologically, and made us all have to think about our lives in a very, very different way. So I could wax poetic about the pandemic for many a minute. But mostly, I hope that this season was of value to you. And I definitely want you to shoot me an email or review on iTunes if that is the case, or if there's something you'd like to hear. I'd love to hear from you. You can always shoot me an email or get at me in some of the socials. If there's an issue you would love for me to cover, I'm always happy to do that. And shout out the listeners that would like that. Because, of course, I get suggestions from listeners, and listeners say, don't say anything. Don't tell anybody I told you this. I can keep your privacy as well. So whatever you got, bring it on. So a little taste of what's to come. Hey, quick break from the action. Sorry for interrupting y'all, but it's important to acknowledge that life has become seriously difficult for many of you these days. With the world feeling chaotic, I mean, I don't know about you, but a pandemic sure did it for me. So many big feelings about all of it and the state of our world. It's impacted our daily lives. It's hindered us from planning and interrupted our mental and sexual health. I just want to take a minute to remind you that I'm not just a sex nerd. I'm a mental health therapist, and I have a team of other like-minded badass therapists that are able to help you out. All my therapists are experienced and have been trained around sexuality, along with direct consultation with me if they need it. My mental health practice is completely online, so you can stay your butt at home and you don't have to park anywhere. It's really great that way. With the lighter restrictions because of the pandemic, we're able to serve more people all over the United States and expats living all over the world and immigrants from all over the world. Just head to mentalandsexualhealth.com and sign up for a free consultation. I'm adding more highly trained therapists regularly, all comfortable with talking about sex. Again, that's mentalandsexualhealth.com. Okay, let's get you back to the show. So this isn't about me breaking up with sex talk. I just want to say that, like, this isn't a build up for me to let everybody down. That's not at all what's happening. But I switched to a seasonal format because a big part of it was the pandemic and my ability to manage my clients' pain and be able to produce content for you that was worth a damn diminished by a lot. I was doing an episode every week for just about 2 years, every single week. I pretty much 52 weeks in the year. So I needed to scale back on things that would allow me then to put that effort into my clients and then what little was left over for my family and myself. So we're going to continue on the seasonal path because I'm still tired, y'all. I'm doing better than I was. I had many listeners reach out to me when I was dealing with some pretty significant depression myself who were concerned. And I appreciate that very, very much. I'm doing quite a bit better, but the pandemic's still going on, right? Like my client's pain is still, it's not as acute as it was, but it is still quite heavy. Especially as people now are dealing with either job loss or family loss, not only just because of COVID, but because of, like, we had just had a huge storm in Texas that caused a lot of people pain because of the winter weather that came. That absolutely knocked out the power and obliterated some people's ability to get to work. And I was checking on some of my colleagues and friends. Adam Maurer, who's been on the show, Adam's safe, y'all, just letting you know. But it's scary. We've been through a lot of scary shit over the last the last 5 years, but over the last 2, we've been through especially as a world, through a lot of scary shit. So I'm going to keep showing up for you. I just have to do it in short bursts, in seasons. But that being said, some of the things that are coming up for me, I am in the middle of working on my dissertation for my PhD. I've finished all of my coursework, which is really cool. The nerdery continues. But I'm doing my dissertation on ADHD, women, and sex. And so I say that out loud to let you all know that I'm going to be keeping you all up to date with what I'm finding and what I'm discovering and what research I'm reading, what books I'm reading, because it has and will continue to take up a lot of my brain space. So I figure, why not share that journey with you all? So you can listen to me essentially create something else. Yes, not another podcast episode, but explore a topic that is near and dear to my own heart, but also near and dear to many of my clients' hearts. I actually work with a lot of people in my practice that deal with ADHD, who have vulvas and have very specific sexual concerns. And they share some patterns. Big surprise. We're patterned creatures, and we have across our species, we have lots of different kinds of patterns. this pattern has not been explored very much in depth. So far, if I'm to be completely honest, I'm not going to be bold as to say that I'm going to be the first person to have ever explored this, but I have yet to find a study. I have not found a study on ADHD, people with vulvas, and sex. So I am doing as much diving as I possibly can to try to find anything related to this. Luckily, somebody who's been on the show that y'all have heard prior, not this season, but the prior episodes, Dr. Ari Tuckman, has done some work around couples and ADHD and sexuality. And so I would imagine I might have Ari come back on in the coming episodes, just so that we can talk about not only what I'm investigating, but how it relates to what we know about ADHD generally. Overall, the thing I'm finding again and again, not only just with my clients, but in the research that I do, is that women overall have had their medical standards, essentially the standards for their bodies, their experiences, and their reports. A lot of the research that has happened in history, not only just medically, but psychologically as well, has been from a penis lens or a male lens. So often when women go to the doctor, their needs and wants and complaints are ignored or minimized. Their experience with chronic illness is often minimized. Their experience with if they menstruate, the symptoms around that is minimized. So that really led me to want to explore, how do people experience ADHD and how does that experience shape how they want to have pleasure? So I'm going to be filling your ears with a lot of that and what I'm thinking and how I'm reading research and all of those things. So I'll tell you what I can when I can. There is a process to doing research for some of you who are listening. Maybe you've done research, or maybe you're not all that familiar with research. There is a process to it. So, and part of that process is protecting participants' identities or things like that. So I'll tell you what I can when I can, just like I do with the stuff I hear about my clients. Also, I'm going to make sure one of the things that I have to do is I have to go through what's called an Irb board review. So that means that essentially they'll take a look at all the things I'm doing to study this and make sure that it's not of any harm or minimized harm to the people who participate in my research. This board, by the way, was made because, let's be real, my field, the field of psychology generally, and the medical fields generally have done really ethically questionable things during research. If you're curious about any of those things, a quick Google of like the Milgram study or the Stanford prison experiment will show you very quickly that we've needed to have limitations and ways to explore how we get to the patterns behaviorally and inside of us, but without creating as little harm to people as we can. But it hasn't always been the case that we had those limitations or someone to review our expectations to make sure that people were protected. So I'm going to make sure that all of you who want to participate in the research get to. I'm going to make sure that I announce it on the podcast and everywhere else. If you are a person who has a vulva and wants to understand how your experience of sexuality is impacted by ADHD, I will make sure that you have the opportunity, if you can, to be able to participate. If you want to, that is. No pressure. No pressure from me at all. also, some of you may have seen on some of the social medias, we have an intern that has joined our practice, the Center for Mental and Sexual Health. The first intern that I've ever gotten to have, which has been really, really cool experience. And this, I'm going to shout out Shiloh. Shiloh has been our first intern and has essentially been writing the program for the future interns to come that are non-clinical interns. So this is an intern that is exploring essentially how does a private practice in mental and sexual health operate, and how does that look out into the world? How do you get clients? How do clients find you? How do you give free information? How does all of that work? And Shiloh's been doing wonderful, wonderful work for us. And we now have the intern spot open. It's not open yet. Shiloh's not finished with her internship yet. But it is, if you would like to become a sex nerd in training and are interested in interning for our practice, we are happy to have you. It just depends, of course, on what if we're a good fit for what your university is requiring of you. So, there's been a ton that's been happening. There's a ton that we did in this season, and in the next season, I'm going to be spending a lot of time focusing on the experience of people with vulvas. I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the female perspective. So it's not to leave you out, penis owners, but to just prepare you that this next season, the focus will be on the ever wonderful and not studied enough vulva. So if those of you who do have penises or those of you who do have vulvas have questions or very specific topics, I'm, again, game for those. Hit me up. Also, another thing happening, me and Dr. Nazanin Moali, who both I know you have heard of her. She's been on my show. I've been on her show. We've done crossover episodes. That she is my sister in podcasting. We are dear friends, and we really enjoy working together on things. And so we decided to work on figuring out how to offer more sexuality and mental health resources to all of you. So we actually created a survey that is still available for you to take if you would like to. The link will be in the show notes to this episode, but also I've kind of posted it all over social media so that if you'd like to participate, you're more than welcome. This isn't necessarily research that will be published or anything like that. This is more like research on not only how can she and I help all of you get access to the things that you really need help with. Because one of the gaps that her and I see again and again for people, especially women, is access to proper sexual health, not only just education, but resources in general. So access to information about the pelvic floor, access to information about how to get the proper birth control that doesn't impact your hormones in a way that is intolerable for you. Like there's a ton of wealth of information. And Naz and I think we have lots and lots of ideas about what these needs are and how to meet them. But we want to hear from you specifically on what your needs are. And her and I are exploring different ways to do that. An app, a website, or lots of different things that we can offer you. But we want some data to make sure that we're walking the right path. You know, again, we're nerds. We can, her and I can find lots and lots of things to talk about and offer. But if it's not what you really need, then, you know, we're just throwing stuff to the wind. So I think I think that covers all the things, ? Again, there'll be a little break between now and the next season. I do not know off the top of my head how long that will be. But I've already got interviews booked, so it will not be forever. I promise you that. So I am very, very excited to be bringing people to you. And in the meantime, listen to the whole season if you haven't already. In the meantime, if you haven't left a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, if you haven't left a review on Apple Podcasts, please do so. It really does help the show get found. And you can find the show in lots of different places. If you're listening now, obviously you found it in one of them, but any of the ways that you can share this show, I would really appreciate you doing so. So many of us podcasters. I know I have a few podcasters who listen to this show who also have their own shows. We're all seeing a small decline in podcast listenership. And the idea is that a lot of people are working from home, or maybe lost their jobs that required a commute. And a lot of people were listening to podcasts on those commute times, or maybe on their lunch when they had the time to walk, or when they had peace and quiet away from their household. So listen whenever you can, however you can, and please, please, please share the podcast with anybody that you can. I am eternally grateful to every single one of you listeners. I am eternally grateful to the listeners who reach out to me and tell me how the show has helped them. It is so wonderful to hear from you and hear that the show is helpful to you, because I am sitting here right now as I'm recording this episode, talking to my computer screen by myself. So I don't know how you feel about it a lot of the time. I feel very lucky when I get to know. So again, I appreciate you all. And if you do have any questions or would love to hear something specific, please feel free to reach out either by email, Erika@erikamiley.com, and any of the socials, Facebook, Twitter. I spend more time, to be completely honest with you, on TikTok and Twitter than I do anywhere else. I do have a Facebook group. If you're a therapist and you're listening, I do have a Facebook group for fellow helpers, whether you're a therapist, a doctor, whatever your helping profession is. I have a Facebook group for professionals that would like to know more and understand their client's perspective or their patient's perspective around sexuality. So you're more than welcome to join us there. And again, if you haven't checked out TikTok yet, TikTok's a lot of fun. That's at Sex Talk with Erika on TikTok. I've had a lot of fun just making little videos about sexuality and the experience of sexuality. I've had some fun stitching some videos of like misinformation or people who don't understand what body parts are or how they work, which, no joke. I will say again and again on this show, we were definitely not prepared well to understand our genitalia or how it works or how it operates or how we operate it with others. And so no shame here, but it's also really, really funny to see some of these videos, to be completely honest with you. So I hope the beginning of 2021 begins to improve for all of you. I wish all of you health. I wish all of you peace. And thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next season.